Welcome to another edition of the Burnt Ships podcast. This is Nan and Gary, the legendary, back with another one. And what we want to talk about is how silence is always an option. And this was inspired by something that came about in terms of like a New York Times conversation. I learned this the hard way when it comes to certain celebrity news, whether it comes to celebrity crime reporting, celebrity deaths, celebrity accusations. One of my friends was producing Jussie Smollett, I think is how you say his name. So I learned this the hard way because when the allegations came out that he had been attacked, et cetera, I had this passionate tweet or whatever, like, yeah, everybody be safe and this and that and et cetera, et cetera. Fully taking the story at face value, right? Because yeah, like I said, one of my friends was producing for this dude, and I just figured, hey, my homie knows him. He must be cool. Like, I can't believe this. I'm taking everything at face value. And as we know, let's just say,
Was your homie mugged and assaulted outside in Chicago? I'm just making bad.
No, but
My bad.
I was like, all right, so I hopped in there, like, the story was at face value. And it turned out that, yeah, there were some holes, inconsistencies, questions about the timeline, et cetera, that ended up leading to some complications and other allegations that it was a false story. And I know there's a new Netflix special about it, et cetera, et cetera. But point being, from that point on, I kind of became quiet about celebrity blotter news or celebrity violent death news or anything like that, because regardless of what my feelings were on a particular situation, because I felt like, friend of a friend or this or that, sometimes you don't get the full story until much later. So obviously there's nothing wrong with a RIP if a particular person passes and just leave it at that. I think sometimes we get into these scenarios where we feel like we know a particular celebrity or we're invested in a particular celebrity, and we want to assume the best. And in doing so, we end up going on a ledge that we shouldn't have gone on. And I think a key in that this weekend, we have a former quarterback, Mark Sanchez, who just got into a situation, Gary. So when it first came out,
USC.
right. So USC, when Mark Sanchez was at USC, I was all for him. But as you can see with the Patriots had, I'm a Patriots fan, and the Jets are our natural rival. We can't stand the Jets. We hate all things Jets. So when Mark Sanchez became a Jet, I obviously rooted against him with all of my heart. But the story first came out that Mark Sanchez was stabbed in Indianapolis, which, Gary, I don't know how much time you spent in Indianapolis. I've gone there twice, I believe. It's not very of a city, right? So when I first
it's no
heard
Portland.
the news, like, all right, I've been right. So like when
Or Chicago.
So when I first heard the news, I was like, look, I've been out late at night in Indiana, and I'm not saying crazy things can't happen. I'm just saying for the areas that I went to that I assumed he would also be going to as just part of a normal night out, right? Because it didn't seem like, in terms of the reporting, that he was in an area like a crack house area, like trying to score. It did not seem like that's where it was. That seemed like he was in an area that, at least at the times when I went, was not particularly dangerous. So a lot of outpouring and support for Mark Sanchez started coming out from people who knew him or thought they knew him. And of course, it was all anybody who knows Mark Sanchez knows he's a great person. Like, it's horrible. People are evil,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. And
just to say it out loud, he was stabbed, right? To say it out loud, he was in the hospital and in some degree of pain.
So yeah, the first I heard of it was Mark Sanchez is in critical condition after being stabbed in a fight, right? And it's like, huh. Like, it's like, oh, well, that sucks. I hope he gets well. I can't imagine what happened. It's weird for that section of Indianapolis. And don't try to blame me the kind of like, what do you know about Indiana? Like, I've been twice. I've been out. I've been about. I've been to safe areas. I've been to middle, like, I've been out and about in Indianapolis nightlife in my younger years, like in the last 10 years. All right. It turns out that Mark Sanchez actually tried to beat up an elderly delivery driver, and the delivery driver stabbed him in self-defense. And the reason that we know this, or at least the reason that's being reported as confirmed, is the delivery driver was behind a Marriott in the delivery bay. And if you know anything about the larger Marriotts, just as part of security and for liability concerns, they will have video cameras set up in all of the places where people can enter and exit.
Right.
Need that for a variety of things. Like, they do not want to get sued. They do not want crimes going down, et cetera, without them being able to fully account for all the whereabouts of their employees, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's just how these things are set up. And hotels, unless they have a fixer on site, are also generally pretty willing to share their footage with law enforcement whenever it's requested, right? You have to be at the super expensive, exquisite ones to get out of that. Wasn't this, right? Okay.
So this is my favorite
we've
part
seen
that you're
some of
about
us
to
have
get
seen.
to.
Wait, so
Tell him what he was doing.
it
What the hell
comes
was
out.
Sanchez doing? Supposedly. What was he doing?
So it comes out that Mark Sanchez was doing wind sprints in the alley, and he took exception to the delivery driver parking in the delivery bay of the Marriott to collect used grease.
But not just any old wind sprints.
That was just part of his route.
Right. Not
Right.
what kind of wind sprints were they on?
This is wind sprints in the alley, but I'm assuming drunken wind sprints, because everybody is saying that he had been drinking. And Mark Sanchez's official statement has been reported as he doesn't remember anything that happened from the night before.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
So we can assume that there was some sort of, shall we say, mind altering in play, whether that is limited to alcohol, chemical imbalance, whatever. And most people are saying that he was at least drunk. That's all that we're going to officially say until the toxicology comes out or whatever. Now, apparently what happened is Mark Sanchez at some point not only accosted the delivery driver, but apparently reached in the vehicle, tried to assault the driver. Things escalated. The 69-year-old delivery driver pepper sprayed Mark Sanchez to calm him down. This made things worse. Mark Sanchez started to beat him up. And then in desperation, the 69-year-old delivery driver started stabbing him. There are pictures of the delivery driver in a cervical collar in the hospital with his cheek split open. Okay. So I don't want anybody to assume that this is something where the elderly guy saw an opportunity to make a payday. Like, those injuries do not seem consistent with somebody who's just trying to make a payday. Now, I don't want to make any assumptions about what anybody was encouraged to do after the fact in order to make lawsuits more likely to succeed or settlements more likely to succeed. The fact of the matter is that the prosecutors and the police have seen fit to charge Mark Sanchez with 1 count of felony assault as well as 3 misdemeanors.
Yeah. That's wild.
Okay, so where we are. And so there were a lot of people who, like I did with Jussie Smollett, jumped out and said Mark Sanchez is a victim and blah, blah. Some people even took it darker, like Mr. Dakich, and proceeded to cast aspersions about the urban element of Indianapolis, assuming that that was how he got stabbed. Just to be clear, the elderly gentleman does appear to be white, at least from the
Okay,
pictures.
good. So it wasn't black on black crime.
So,
it was white on black crime.
So, see, Gary, you always trying to get it.
I'm just saying, like statistically.
To be clear, Mark Sanchez does identify as Mexican, but also to be clear, Mark Sanchez has been in photos with President Trump. So I don't know what to say other than he has been in photos with President Trump. And at one point in his life, he identified as Mexican. I cannot make this clear enough that there were no black people involved in this altercation, as Gary was joking about. So despite Mr. Dakich's accusations on the podcast, it's obviously not what happened here. And I think we all, this is we're obviously not saying anything negative about Mark Sanchez's recovery, propositions, or health. We're not wishing either party ill will. We're just saying that sometimes when these celebrity stories pop up, silence is an option that you might want to take until you know all of the details, right? I think there's probably Jets fans or USC fans or even some of his coworkers that went from condemning violence and treating Sanchez as the victim to evolving their statement to say, we wish a speedy recovery to all parties involved, et cetera, right? So, yeah.
Well, you're reminding me another unrelated thing over the last couple of weeks involving one Ezra Klein and Ta-Nehisi Coates in terms of
and I think the
silence is always an option, right?
Absolutely. And so we can allude to it without getting deep into the weeds and getting in trouble, right? So,
well, let me lay it out real quick since I brought it up, because when we were sort of talking about ideas for what to chat about, this came up and I had erased it from my mind because it's so painful to hear and read a certain class of pundits of a certain persuasion,
right,
and skin color. And anyway, so Charlie Kirk was brutally assassinated the other week. And after that, Ezra Klein, who is a white liberal commentator, very renowned, respected thought leader of sorts from the New York Times, wrote a column. It was called Charlie Kirk Practiced Politics the Right Way. And obviously a very divisive, contentious moment and figure. A lot of people have differing, very divergent opinions about the dude, myself included, and Ta-Nehisi Coates included. And Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote a response to that column, basically calling Klein out. And they had an interview on Klein's New York Times podcast, during which at one point, Ta-Nehisi Coates said, you basically, in a nutshell, Coates was saying, your description of Kirk does not match up what I have know about the guy and what I subsequently looked to even further. This guy was not practicing politics the right way, and you didn't even include any of his actual comments. That's one way that I can know. Your column saying that he practiced it the right way. And then secondly, silence. You could have just not said anything and been allowed him to rest without what Ta-Nehisi Coates was basically saying was false praise. And first of all, Klein's column drove me crazy. I had sort of rubbed it out of my mind because it drove me insane reading the whole thing. And then reading Ta-Nehisi Coates' response was very soothing and healing. I was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. But yeah, you're right. Silence is always an option.
Yeah. And so since let's just say tangentially, I think we both feel the same way about Charlie Kirk, and that some of his comments were, well, I think the most charitable way to put it is I have had coworkers fired for saying some of the things that he said in regards to race, Black people's qualifications, etc., just for sending an email where they were joking about it, right? And as we all know, Charlie Kirk is not funny. Like, his comedian is not his thing. He's never been funny. None of his clips made me laugh. Any of his comments were actually said in the context of trying to make a larger point about how a certain minority group didn't deserve something, right? So,
I mean, to be fair, can you name one funny conservative comedian? It's hard, right?
So I would say there's somewhere it's like, I know they know the craft, but they don't make me laugh. Does that make sense? Like, I'm trying to remember his name.
I mean, not that Kirk wasn't a comedian, but yeah, I'm just extending your logic. I agree with you. Kirk was not funny, but I also think that's a feature, not bug. Conservatism, in general. I think there's something about the underlying sort of psychology of right-wing or conservative ideology that is inherently antithetical to humor. So, I mean, I'd love to debate that with anybody, but I can't think of anybody.
Yeah, I think what you touched on is accurate, because if certain jokes aren't done in love, then it just feels like a hate tirade. You know what I'm saying? Like there are things that you could say like in love or craft so that it's humor and you make it relatable, right? Like you take the Chris Rock OJ joke, right, from Bring the Pain, which is considered to be one of his best specials, if not the best special, right? Like, oh, yeah, I ain't saying he should have done it, but I understand, right? Like that was the refrain. But,
Right.
but the way that he set it up, right, was to make it universal. Like it, so she taking this man in your car to your house, but to do this and it. I ain't saying you should have done it. I understand. Like it's just like, and that was the refrain, and the way that he pulled off the joke, it was like relatable. Like it wasn't like ripping Cole Brown's character or Ron Goldman's character, any of that. It was all just a function of, as a guy, when a girl does this, there's a certain anger level, et cetera, et cetera. Like there's a way to approach a topic, even a topic as horrible on face value as murder, and make it funny and in the hands of the right craftsman.
Yeah.
I think when that doesn't happen, right? Like if you look at, I think his name was Tony Hinchcliffe, and he started doing all the Puerto Rico jokes during that one rally before the election that rubbed a lot of people. So that's Tony Hinchcliffe. I know that he's like the reason that a lot of that stuff bombed outside of the MAGA community was because a lot of the punchlines were tired and it just felt like they were back in Puerto Rico rather than being in right. Like there are ways to ridicule a group of people or a location and be funny and have it done in love and make it relatable and try to bring everybody.
I think that's one layer to the onion. I agree that they don't always have that nuance or the technical ability to do it with love or and I also think there's just fundamentally something about the right-wing mindset. It applies to art in general, whether it's music, like they just don't there's something about the underlying pathology of conservatism that's grounded in grievance culture and scarcity and fear and anger. So you can't be you can be like Sam Kinison was angry, right? You can be angry but still have an insight into the human condition and share that.
Bill Hicks was angry too.
Yeah. But there's like even somebody like Dennis Miller before he made his sort of switch into right wing, he was funny back in the day.
He was.
But what happens is there's something the right wing mind is really a groupthink status quo mind, and all great art seeks to evolve and change and challenge. And ultimately, in the most crucial periods in our history, they're punching up, not down. And Hinchcliffe's problem, first of all, he's edgelord crowd work guy, right? He's not a real comedian in the classical sense of like I write funny things and I time it and I have all these things. I think there's something it's something it's even more fundamental to the mindset of right-wing people. It's why they don't understand modern art. Like I don't get every piece of modern art that I look at, and I think some of it can be, but they just their mindset is fundamentally incompatible with creativity in many respects because they don't understand creativity, and you can see that they want to play in the reindeer games. They want to be a part. Like most people don't know that Ben Shapiro is a failed screenplay writer, right? Like Hitler. Right. I'm not comparing Ben Shapiro to Hitler, but Hitler was a failed art student, right? Painter. He applied and got rejected to art school. So like, and Shapiro, I mean, if I could go back in time, I would give Shapiro a job and give him just get him in soap opera so we didn't have to listen to him talk about politics. But if you've ever heard any of his commentary,
you raised another point that I think is crucial in comedy and why I don't think conservative comedians are able to pull off the iconic specials at the rate that,
It's
if you
not
want to
just,
call it
it's zero.
moderate, centrist,
Right.
apolitical.
Yeah.
Or, well, what I was going to say is part of developing yourself as a comedian is getting into these impromptu roast battles with other comedians, where
Mhm.
basically 9 times out of 10, they're going to roast something about you, roast your act, and you have to be ready to say something back. And a lot of these jokes are going to be based in truth, but the whole thought of it is if they can call out your act and say, oh, yeah, like you're going to complain for an hour about your mother. Nice act, right? Like it's little shots where if it hits, you're like, maybe I need to add 15 minutes about this. Maybe I need to add 5 minutes about this so that it's not all. So it's like there's an element of going back and forth and trading, but not being so. I'm trying to think of what the word is, thin skinned as to turtle or pout when joke lands against you, even if your jokes landed. You get what I'm saying? And so I
Yeah.
think the challenge of doing comedy with the conservative mindset, I would say 90% of the conservatives I interact with are not self aware enough to realize, hey, you were making fun of George Floyd dead and you're putting up those memes, and now you're upset that somebody put up a Charlie Kirk meme because that's your guy. Like, let's be consistent. Like, if you're gonna say it's okay to meme a dead person, then you have to be able to take that. Or it
Right.
seems like, Charlie Kirk, and I will say this, like, not getting into his racism, he said on record that a few gun deaths are worth it in order to have gun rights. Like you
Yeah.
can look up the quote. It's
Yeah.
been posted on multiple Instagram reels. It's on YouTube. I am not misquoting him. He said a few gun deaths are worth it for us to have gun rights. And he also talked multiple times about execution should be public and we need to bring back public execution and kids should watch them, right?
Right.
And when people brought this up, in terms of the irony of him dying of a gun death after saying gun death was necessary and in
Mm.
public and his kids being there, rather than considering, yeah, fair point, right? Everybody's like, how could you be so heartless? Which is like, look, bro, like he said it. Like, I'm not saying I support what happened, but he clearly supported what happened by his words. And he never said except me, right? Like had he said except me, then they'd have a point, but he never said except me. So I think that's biggest flaw about conservatives and there it's like it's okay unless it happens to somebody in our circle and then it's pearl clutching. And I think if that's the attitude you go through with, then you're definitely not built for comedy, like a
Yeah.
comedy career. And you're definitely not built for even healthy dialogue, Like I had some people and literally all I was saying was, hey, the next time a racist dies, and you're concerned about, just tell me he's racist so I don't have to look him up and see the racist quotes. That's literally all I said. I didn't
Right.
get into whether or not people should like the guy, whatever. And most people were supportive, but there was 4 people pearl clutching and acting like I had attacked their dog or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, that to that point, I think the worst thing that you can call a conservative is racist. Like you can't. It's literally. It's weird too. I mean, it's like cognitive dissonance upon cognitive dissonance, right? Turtles all the way down. Because on the one hand,
Yeah.
the conservatives don't believe that racism exists anymore. They don't, whether it's systemic or individual, right? They think it's bad apples. It's not a real thing. But then on the other hand, they
Right.
if they're so convinced it doesn't exist, if you make the claim that, oh, that was racist, that it gets them so tweaked and so turned up. Well, why are you bothered about a thing that you say is imaginary? And just say you're not racist and move on. But I just think, to put a bow on it for me,
Mhm.
like if
Mhm.
you ever listen, it's not even limited to comedy. It's creativity and art in general. Like if you ever listen to Ben Shapiro, or even when Charlie Kirk, everything that they're never able to consume a piece of art and comment on it without it being about how mad they are about a thing. They don't understand. Shapiro just critiqued, had a whole thing about the new Superman movie. And anybody that follows comics and knows Superman, the consensus, including myself, I saw the original 78. I collected comic books as a kid. The new Superman is fire. It's like the writing is amazing. The acting is amazing. It's a good ass movie. And Ben Shapiro didn't get it because he's too blinded by this imaginary leftist project that he thinks is in full effect at all times. But actually the thing he's talking about is art. Like, art is naturally subversive, and by extension, because it's subversive in general, that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, creativity in art flows from a type of personality that's open to the world, that's experimenting, that's trying new things.
Right.
And conservatives don't know how to do that. All they know how to do is make up a story about bad hombres coming over the country and taking your health care. And you can't make art when your only trick is to hate on brown people and black people and make up stories about them taking your shit. And that's really, at the end of the day, that's been my experience when I look at any criticism of art from the right.
Yeah.
And when I look at people that try and make art they don't get it. It's not in their, they don't have the capacity to be creative in that way. Like, look at when they try and mimic like Saturday Night Live, where they do these skits. Like, anytime they try to be ironic, this shit does not work. It's horrible.
I think the good segue into this is the Bad Bunny being the announced Super Bowl performer.
Go Bad Bunny!
So here's the cool thing about, Bad Bunny. So, as some of our fans may know, we've done reggaeton songs before. We've written or co-written reggaeton songs with other Latin artists. We have been in some way involved with working on reggaeton since 2018, right?
Yep.
Right, Gary? 2018. Okay. So in that capacity, I have had the pleasure of going to multiple Latin award shows, label after parties. I've been in the same rooms with Bad Bunny in terms of different parties. I've seen him perform for free each time, 5 times between different award shows, different label after parties, because I've been to the Universal after party, the Warner Music Group after party, Sony, et cetera, et cetera. They all have a lot of different after parties and events for Billboard Latin Week and for Latin Grammy Week. And so it's always been a great time to network, et cetera. When I first saw Bad Bunny, he was actually a shy performer. He stood in one little corner of the stage, and his hype man kind of did all the work. But he had songs that girls would see like a dominant female skew to the audience. Now, as his career progressed, he got better and better as a live performer, and he got here. He started more like, he started off, in my opinion, a little more Latin trap, and now he's kind of gone into full reggaeton. He's done ballads, he's done rock songs, he's done house music. He's experimented with a lot of different vibes, and his songwriting has just gotten better and better and better. For lack of a better comparison for people not familiar with Latin music, I would say his career arc is similar to Post Malone in terms of,
that's a good example.
like, started off with and then had this arc where he kind of expanded into some other genres, all while remaining commercially relevant with really, really catchy melodies. So for me, it was great. Like, he's an American artist. I know that some conservatives like Tommy Lahren and some people who have a little less mental capacity than the average did not realize that Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, and by extension, Bad Bunny is American and travels on an American passport. We know that that's not our listeners here because we have,
and that they've had citizenship from birthright since 1917, give or take, if I'm not mistaken. So
and so we have had non-American halftime performers before. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. Like Rihanna was not born in America, right? Just because their baby daddy is American, she was not born in America, okay? U2, not born in America. Paul McCartney, not born in America,
They
right?
don't care
Like we
about
can
that.
continue to go.
Exactly.
We can continue to go down the list. So he is undeniably an American artist. He is in the top 3 of any streaming metric you want to use worldwide, right? So we have an American citizen who is in the top 3 streaming worldwide. And because even if you go to J-Lo was American born, Shakira was not, right? So you had an American and a Colombian, right? Like the last time there was a Latin oriented halftime show. I think that it is a thing to be celebrated. The reason that I think it is a thing to be celebrated is for me, just like with the Olympics, like anytime an American is putting on, like I'm a root for him. Like the weekend was Canadian. I wasn't offended by it, but there's
Yeah.
always that extra go ahead. Like, well, there's nothing wrong with being proud for your countrymen, like in the Olympics. Like when I root for the US in the Olympics, it's not that I hate other countries, but there's just that extra effort or joy behind an American winning. Like when Simone Biles and Sonny Lee are running around the American flag, like, yeah. So that is to me what the Bad Bunny halftime show. It's an American who worked his way up from a shy, introverted trap rapper to a global phenomenon, kind of at a coronation point, right? Like this is kind of the culmination of everything. He just hosted SNL, right? He's got a burgeoning acting career. And I will always be happy for that. And then also selfishly, I would say, Gary, and you can tell me if you feel differently or if you agree, every Latin event I went to or any Latin session that I went to, it was always a very welcoming, open environment. Like, oh yeah, come on through. Like, oh, you made that beat. Are you sure you black? Are you Dominican? Just kind of playing around with it. You know what I mean? Like just all in love.
Mhm.
It's never been a closed off or non-inclusive thing. They're like, hey, if you like Latin music, roll with us. Like, welcome. I never got hard stares going into any of these events. Nobody's like, why are you here? You don't belong.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so more than any other genre in terms of the industry events, et cetera, like it's the only place I've been to industry events and consistently people are unapologetically dancing, right? Like you go to regular Grammy events, half the time people are on their phones, trying to look
Yeah.
cool, trying to find a table. Like nobody's interacting. Nobody wants to get stared at on the dance floor. Whereas you go to the Latin events, maybe it's just like we love music, we make music. We're not gonna act like we don't enjoy the music. You get what I'm saying? And so I have nothing but positive feelings about Bad Bunny being selected for the act. Now I know that there are some people who, and I think we can guess the demographic of the people who take exception, right? Like I could tell you that even amongst the black people that I either talk to or follow, et cetera, everybody's happy. They're like, hey, I hope he doesn't do anything in English. I hope he does the whole thing in Spanish. Good for him. Go Bad Bunny,
Yeah.
right? Like
Did you
nobody
see that
that I
tweet from a year ago that predicted it? Did you see that? That was sort of
that was
making the
hilarious.
rounds.
Yeah, but to your point, and this is why I brought this up, I forget which idiot was. Was it Megan Kelly? One of these right wing talking head idiots was like, Bad Bunny as the halftime performer is a middle finger to MAGA, or it's a slap in the face to MAGA, or something like that. And it's like, no, look, here's the thing, right? This is like inside baseball for people who don't know. The city that's hosting the event also has a say. You cannot bully San Francisco into accepting Bad Bunny as a performer. What they typically do is they say, here's a handful of performers willing to do the halftime show in your city. You pick, and we'll go back and confirm. That's how it works. Okay. So with Kendrick Lamar last year, there were some other artists who were in play, right? And New Orleans decided on Kendrick Lamar. Okay. Like they make the final call. All right. So is San Francisco a traditionally liberal city? Sure. Right. But this wasn't the NFL and this wasn't Jay-Z saying Bad Bunny or else.
Yeah.
This was essentially a curated process where At points, Adele was discussed. At points, Adele was discussed. Taylor Swift was discussed, et cetera, et cetera. For different reasons, they ended up pulling out of the discussion. But Bad Bunny is the performer, and it to me it had nothing to do with MAGA. Everything to do with he's one of the top 3 artists in the world right now, and it's a free concert in the city. It's a no-brainer. For me, if I'm the mayor or whatever part of the host committee, that's a no-brainer. Like a top 3 artist, even if I'm into the music, it's a no-brainer. If people are showing up or coming to the city, et cetera,
no, he's
Bad Bunny
he's literally one of the biggest pop stars in the world right now. He's literally like huge.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question as a music fan, as a Bad Bunny fan, but also as an NFL fan. And shout out to Wifey who made this point to me earlier, which I kind of agree with, but I'm curious what you think.
Okay.
It seems like this could have been an act of defiance by the NFL low key, because they didn't have to go there. Setting aside the fact that he's already a huge pop star, we know that. But you could make an argument that in the climate that we're in, with this ICE Gestapo running around just causing all kinds of BS and doing all the insane things, it does seem like choosing Bad Bunny, right? Puerto Rico's a big island of trash a year ago at the convention. It does seem like that you could sort of make an inference and say, maybe the NFL is woke.
So here's what I would say on that, right? Like, if you look at some of the key
woke in
people,
quotes.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. If you look at some of the key owners, like a lot of them are firmly in the MAGA camp. Like Jerry Jones, big Trump guy. The McNair family, if I remember correctly, the Texan owners, they were a big Trump guy. Kraft was a Trump guy until the weird rant about Kaepernick and going after the players. And he said, "Hey, I can't support this guy anymore." So I would say most of those guys are billionaires, and most billionaires only care about their tax cuts. And that's typically something that you're going to get from the Republican side. And so a lot of these owners are probably Trump supporters, probably MAGA, not necessarily because they're racist, but because their tax cuts mean more to them than the humanity of others, which is a whole different bucket.
Right.
So
Right. Well,
what I would say is, from a business standpoint, it's smart because you have a whole bunch of new eyes when you have the top 3 streaming artists worldwide as the halftime show. So as ruthless businessmen, whatever their feelings might have been about the way MAGA might take it, it's like, hey, look, if we have a chance to have a top 3 artist be there and watch our halftime show for 30 minutes, that's great for ratings, which means we can charge this during the halftime show commercial, which means more and more revenue, right? Because if you look at what you can charge for a Super Bowl commercial, sometimes it gets crazy. And then you take those ratings and then you negotiate as part of the next TV deal, like, hey, we got them Bad Bunny when it was on this channel. We'll get you a similar caliber when you're on this channel, but we need for you to pay this for part of the TV package. So
right.
it's all very cold, hard business negotiate. From my perspective, I'm saying, so for them, a top 3 artist, they don't care if he's hardcore pro black, speaks nothing but Spanish. All they know is top 3 artists, ratings, the rest of it, whatever. I'm still going to get my tax cut and laugh at all the poor people, whether they're black, white, whatever. Like, just that's kind of what I think they think. I think Jay-Z, in having those discussions and putting Bad Bunny up, probably there was an element of screw you. But I don't think that put over to the owners. I think the owners are like, oh, top 3 saying cool. I think Jay-Z might have, you know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of weirdos that are like, oh, why couldn't it be Morgan Wallen? It's like, because Morgan Wallen isn't as big as Bad Bunny. Like, there's nobody that they've put up that's bigger than Bad Bunny in terms of MAGA wanting an alternative halftime performer. I did hear 2 weirdo things that I want to bring up. I don't know how solidified they are yet. Number one is, I heard that Charlie Kirk's old organization is going to try to produce an alternate halftime show. And I don't know what channel that's going to be on, who the performers are going to be, how they're going to put it together, et cetera, et cetera. But there has been some discussion on Turning Point possibly putting an alternative halftime show for all of the races. And then the other thing that I saw that had me scratching my head was Kid Rock apparently came out and said Bad Bunny shouldn't be halftime performer. And if you know anything about Kid Rock,
Wait,
right?
what? That's not. You're not bringing that up because that's surprising, right?
Well, so this is the weird thing about Kid Rock, right? Like, because you and I go back probably older than we want to admit, right? At one point, Kid Rock was in the same hip hop collective as D Nice and Boogie Down Productions and KRS-One. You get what I'm saying? Like, he was a rapper with like a high top, like, yo, I'm hip hop, yo, I'm around black people, and yeah, I gotta do right. He was doing all of that before picking up the guitar, getting the long hair, and singing in front of the Confederate flag. Like, he had a whole family with a black woman, okay, before he got up there and started doing all the performative, a Confederate now, et cetera, et cetera. And he's even hung out with D Nice where a racist approached him and said, Kid Rock, I love how you don't take shit from black people because they're hard or whatever, in front of D Nice. And Kid Rock was like, how does he know I'm not racist? And it's like, bro, you performed in front of a Confederate flag. If you can't do that math and make that connection, I don't know what to tell you, fam. Like, look who you hang with, look who you co-sign, look what you stand in front of. How could you be surprised somebody don't think you right? And you not walking around showing off your half black kids either, right? Now that could be because they don't want to be anywhere near you at your sit, or it could be because you realize that that's going to alienate a certain aspect of your fan base because you're all in on the right wingers. So it's just weird for Kid Rock to even step in this as a musician. I feel like it's weak. Like, I feel like any
Oh,
musician coming out to hate on a musician over the Super Bowl halftime show, it's weak. It comes off
see, I
right. Like,
don't.
you come off as like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I think it's
you
weird.
top three, you not like you
I think it's
had your little time in the sun
totally,
with your
totally. But you're speaking logically and from a like you're
yeah,
saying you're judging from a standard of reality and objectivity, like and like without having a cognitive dissonance.
yeah,
But he's a MAGA head, and so and yeah, so that none of that
yeah,
I think just because he was signed to Boogie with D Nice and Boogie Down, like I mean, I think that's also just those are just business decisions, and business gives you strange bedfellows and people, but his politics are very
yeah,
clear. I mean, this is a privileged white dude that whose dad like he grew up like very wealthy, grew up on an estate in Detroit. I mean, so
yeah,
he's not. I mean, yes, he did come up in the Detroit hip hop scene and all that, but he's no Eminem, and he
right,
certainly doesn't have Eminem's politics, let alone his talent. So, but yeah, I mean, I just think again,
yeah. I think the
it
other no, no, I'm with you. I think the other thing that makes K Rock a fraud is apparently he had a restaurant that he shut down to protect workers from ICE raids. And it's like, bro, you voted for the guy that you knew was gonna turn up the ICE raids, and now you shutting down your restaurant because of the ICE raid. Like, you didn't think that through. Like, what kind of leader are you for your business in terms of this restaurant to put them in that position? Like, so clearly we've established that Kid Rock is not an elite thinker. But I was just taken aback that he came out so publicly as a musician to complain about at least Morgan Wallen with his problematic ass didn't come out and say Bad Bunny shouldn't be the halftime performer. You know what I mean? Like, so
well, to your point about business decisions, I think your take on why they probably did it was is correct, and also like
yeah.
the other layer to the flip side of that is like the old adage, "There's no such thing as bad publicity," right? Like so I think that's buttressing your point. Like they also probably it's probably more likely that they were seeking the culture war to get eyeballs and get the publicity, the PR from that, rather than making some kind of political statement.
Well, I think
Rather than being this provocateur against ICE and what's going on.
Yeah, I was gonna say anytime it's a top three artist, the audience is built in. Like that's a no. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when you think about who the biggest artists are, right? Like it's like Drake is still kind of big even after Ken mantled him.
Is
Like
he? Is he?
Bad Bunny's big, right? Like Beyonce's big. You get like all of these are big artists. Like we all know Beyonce skews a little left. The NFL wouldn't say no to Beyonce either. Like Beyonce doing it again. She's already done it and done it in such a big way. She don't need to do it. She already just did the Netflix halftime show for the one football game. So she's done enough halftime that she's probably over it, frankly. But my point is, if you ask the owners, hey, top three artists in the world, you want them at the Super Bowl? They're like, hell yeah. How much we can charge for the commercial again? Like
Yeah.
that's all it is. It's just that simple. And yes, I know networks technically charge for the commercial, but then the NFL charges the networks for the right to air the Super Bowl when they negotiate their next contract. And so that is what I mean. The bigger the ratings, the bigger the negotiating power, the more networks will bid against each other to get that Super Bowl as part of their TV contract. And so, yeah, I know it's part of it is rotating. I know streamers have entered in. I
Right.
know it's complicated, but the point is ratings are ratings, and ratings give you power to negotiate the value of the content that you are loaning, leasing, whatever you want to call it to the network. Right. So that
Yep.
was where I was,
Yep.
yeah, just to in advance anybody who's like, actually, yeah. So, yeah.
Well, long story short, silence is always an option. Silence is always
So
an
if you're a
option.
musician, yeah. So if you're a musician and you mad that you're not at the level Bad Bunny is, where you can get offered to do the Super Bowl, it's okay to be quiet, right? Kid Rock, it's okay. Like Kid Rock is washed up at this point. You know what I mean? Like he's doing, he can do the MAGA circuit and he can do all the little MAGA rallies and probably get money that way. But
Yeah.
I haven't heard anybody say, "Yo, put on that new Kid Rock," since early 2000s. And even
Yeah.
then, it wasn't often.
Yeah. I mean, this is a guy that shot an AR-15 at a bunch of Bud Light six packs a couple years ago. So I think he lost any credibility to be taken seriously at any level.
And that's the thing. I can't figure out what part of him is performative and what part of him he actually believes in at this point. And that's for me, anytime somebody's in that territory, I kind of tune them out. You get what I'm saying? Like it's like I know that there's certain people, especially on the right wing side, that realize that there's money to be made in regurgitating all of the right wing talking points and making people feel seen, especially if you are minority affiliated or minority, right? Like if you have black kids or you're black and you start espousing all the conservative talking points, especially as it relates to the ones about minorities, you can make a significant amount of money like Candace Owens did, regurgitating the points. I've just never had the desire to do it, engage in it, or support it because of who I grew up around and how many of them survived actual real life segregation before the Civil Rights Act was enacted, which was another thing that Charlie Kirk hated and complained about on his podcast. But that's another
Yeah.
story. But I just think silence is always an option. You don't have to be performative. You don't have to regurgitate the talking points. And I think maybe to close this out, rest in peace, Kairan Lacey. I think we mentioned him during our draft prep podcast and the fact that he had some legal troubles at the time. And it turns out that the cops actually railroaded him. They bullied witnesses into saying that he was part of an accident that he was not a part of. Body cam footage and other footage is showing that his car was nowhere near the accident. It was at least 100 yards away at the time of impact. And so, unfortunately, amidst all the allegations and the assumed drop in his draft stock, he tragically took his own life. And so I think we want to, again, there were a lot of people who condemned Kairan Lacey early on. I don't think that we did that. I think we just said that he had the legal issue and moved on from there. But there were people openly condemning him for driving reckless and killing a veteran, et cetera, et cetera. That was generally the story that was getting out. And he was surrounded by that. And he was getting attacked by that on social media, et cetera, et cetera. And now it turns out that the police lied during the course of their investigation. They railroaded him. They had a lot of people reporting a story that was false. And tragically, this guy took his own life because he just felt like his NFL dream was over and nobody was believing him. And I think that's probably yet another silence is always an option. It's as much as it may be tempting to condemn somebody or hop in on something, it's okay to remain silent, dig into the facts, ask people a little bit closer to the know before coming out with a public opinion.
Rest in peace, Kairan. We didn't deserve you, man. Yeah. All right, I appreciate you, brother. We covered some good stuff tonight and some hard conversations, but also necessary. So always good to spend time with you, man, and get your takes on stuff. And we'll pick it up next week, man. All right, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, man.
All right, peace.